Hi, cousins, and welcome to the Sunday Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Alicia J, and I'm so glad that you came to spend a few minutes of time to be with me today. I see you're growing and you're glowing, and I love this look on you, but I think it's time that you start your villain era, like right now. And this week's episode is how to enter your villain era. So this episode, we're going to talk about what a villain era is and the significance of it. And I'll go over a step-by-step guide on how you can maximize your results through your villain era. And I'll share a little bit of my story about my own personal journey in a villain era. And we believe in God over here, of course. So our weekly scripture is coming from Hebrews chapter 12, verse 11. And it says, "No discipline is enjoyable while it's happening. It's painful. But afterward, there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way." So, what does that scripture mean? And how does that apply to a villain era? Well, let's go ahead and talk about what a villain era is. And this is a term that is considered slang. So I'm getting this definition from urbandictionary.com. And it says, when you're tired of being a pushover to others and you finally start to say no. And while I feel like that's a part of your villain era, what it means, WikiHow also adds a little bit more context to that and describes the villain era as a time period where someone decides to prioritize themselves even if others find it disagreeable. Basically, you're embracing your villain era by setting boundaries so that you can grow and develop to the person that you would like to be and you would like to see. And that brings me back to my scripture. It emphasizes the idea that discipline, or the process of learning and growing yourself, can be challenging and uncomfortable. It also acknowledges the fact that undergoing discipline is not really pleasant at all times, and it really often requires hard work, sacrifice, and facing difficulties. So while you are going through your villain era, know that it's not going to be easy to say no, because you're breaking bad habits so that you can forge new ones for yourself. And that you may have to sacrifice some relationships that you had previously that were toxic for you and hindered you from growing to the person that you want to be. But that scripture also highlights the positive outcomes from enduring and embracing that discipline. And it basically says you'll have a peaceful harvest of right living, which could symbolize your personal growth, success, in your life after you've aligned your values and principles to your course and also God's vision for you. And that's really the whole purpose of your villain era. It's not to be mean or cruel to other people, but it's to enforce boundaries. It's to really find yourself. And a lot of people normally go through their villain era after a heartbreak or a breakup from a friend or whatever. And it makes sense because over time, when you're in relationships, your boundaries morph, budge, and are a little bit fluid when you're with another person. So that way, there's balance and give or take in there. But when that breakup or that heartbreak comes to pass, or, somebody forsakes one another, you kind of feel like you have to go get revenge. And the best revenge is to show up better than you were before. And so that's the whole purpose of a villain arc. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you step by step on how you can activate and really maximize your villain arc here. But it is right about that time for me to go ahead and tell you to like and subscribe to my channel, and also comment on this video if you liked what you saw today. It helps the algorithm get this video out to more people like you, and I really do appreciate it. But let's go ahead and get back to the business. So how do you actually start your villain arc? There's about 7 steps that I want to give you, and I'm going to get them to you all up front, and then I'll tell you about my experience with the villain arc. So step number 1 is to put God first. That's going to be my number one step in everything that you do, because once you align yourself with his vision, I promise you the rest of your villain arc will be so much more purposeful and so much more efficient. And you'll actually start to see the benefits a lot sooner than if you were to just go in pure negative energy. So after you do that, step number 2 is setting goals. You'll want to set achievable goals for yourself, and goals that may be a little bit out of the box of possibilities for you, because you really want to see how far you can go. And step number 3 may be a little bit hard for you. For my girlies that like a little bit of attention, but you have to disappear. That's step number 3. Disappear from social media. Like, log out. Or at least not post. You don't want people to know what you're doing, because you don't want people to pray or plot against you. So disappear for a little bit of time. You can keep in contact with your friends and close relatives, but the whole world does not need to see the glow up that you're about to enter. And number 5 is improve your appearance. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean to lose weight or gain weight, but it definitely does mean to take a step back and look at your style, how you appear, how you're showing up, whether that be maybe you need a new wardrobe, maybe you just need to find a style that works for you instead of a style that may be pleasing to the eye to normal people or regular people. You don't want to just follow trends, because 9 times out of 10, the trends aren't intended for you. And you really want to start separating yourself from the masses so that your individuality can actually shine through. I mean, it is your villain arc. You're supposed to be the main character. So during this time, you want to improve your appearance. But number 6 is improving your skills. So you really want to take the time to find something that you're passionate about, take that skill and hone in on it. At this point during your villain arc, you really want to work on something that's going to contribute to society in a way that only you can. I want you to become the expert of all experts, the mentor of all mentors. You want to be someone that has knowledge beyond measure, because knowledge is power at the end of the day. And that's really only going to be attainable during this period where you have nothing but focus and you're locked into your success. And number 7 is to find balance between the new confidence that you've gained and the strengths that you've earned and developed with your ability to show empathy for others and still have boundaries for others, so that you don't get walked over, so that you don't get taken advantage of, and also so that you don't come off as a egotistical dick, because you are still going to be the main character in your story, but you still need to find a balance between the two. Otherwise, you'll really end up being the villain. Someone said the villain is the character that the people most remember, but there's a lot of them. There are not a lot of heroes. So it is important to, while yes, your villain era will be the jumpstart that you'll probably need to start feeding and finding that success that you want, you'll still need to be the hero in your own story at the end of the day. So find that balance and move forward. And if you're still sticking around, I guess it's time for my story time about my villain era. And really, honestly, talk about the benefits that I really gained also. So, I went through like a major breakup like back in 2022. And during that time, like, I just kind of was super devastated. Like, really took me like off my balance, off my rocker, if you will. And honestly, I didn't really know like what I wanted to do or who I was anymore, like after that relationship had ended. And because it was a long-term relationship, but after like I woke up one day and someone was like, what does it mean to be Alicia? I literally sat there and was like, bro, I don't know. And so like that really was like my wake up call. That's really what triggered my villain era the first time. And it was at that point where I was just like, I gotta look and see like who I am and who I want to be, because there's a lot of like different kinds of styles, different types of influences that I could pick up. But really what I started to do was work backwards. So who was I before I got into this relationship? And I rediscovered things about myself that kind of was like tucked away, because it just didn't mesh well with my relationship. And you know, over time, like you just start to, if you don't have that individualism, like you just start to become the other person. So during my villain arc, I really made it a point to want to stand out and want to be different. But I ultimately wanted to align myself with what and where God wanted me to be. So I got red hair. Everybody knows like when a woman has red hair, they're out to like either wreck somebody's life, break some hearts, or definitely to stand out. And so I got red hair. I looked really good in the red hair, actually. It was during fall, so it was like on brand and everything. And I actually might get the red hair back just for shits and giggles. But like after I got the red hair, I was just like, I gotta change everything else. I literally lost 10 or 15 pounds during that time. Because I was no longer in a toxic relationship, it was a little bit easier to do. But also, I started going to dates on myself. Like, I would take myself out to, you know, basketball games. I would take myself out to eat, to a bar, just mingling, kind of finding my people and the experiences that I wanted to have as an adult. And it was so liberating to look back and realize, like, when I look back at my photo gallery, I see photos of myself towards the end of that relationship versus, you know, during my villain arc versus after my villain arc. And I am so much more comfortable in my skin. I'm so much more confident, and I have a skill now that I like to continue to grow and develop. And I'm working towards, you know, mass producing that to where I can really benefit on a larger scale. But none of this would have been possible, like, had I never went through my villain arc. Like, I had to have a drive that was outside of myself to find myself. And as much as people be like, oh, you know, you should be able to want to improve on yourself, like, after a while, when you get comfortable like with where you are and what you do, like, sometimes that outside influence, that outside force is everything that you need to move forward and to propel. But it's up to you to actually make that decision for yourself. So I hope everybody enjoyed this video, and I hope your villain arc goes really well. But as always, it's been nice speaking to you, cousins. I'll see you next week in the video. You're glowing and you're growing always. And I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.